Nice to meet you. I'm Keita Matsumoto and I work for Araya in Japan. Today, I would like to talk about goal-directed planning by predictive coding based variational recurrent neural network from small training samples. Introduction. Deep learning methods for the development of autonomous robots include reinforcement learning and imitation learning are the main ones. Another interesting approach has emerged is a combination of predictive coding and active inference, called PCAIF model. This section provides an overview of PCAIF models. The PCAIF model have received much attention as a unifying model of neural functions for recognition, learning, and prediction. A simple diagram is shown on the right. The PCAIF model consists of two main mechanisms. First is the top-down process. The top-down process is to predict future perceptions from the intention state. Second is bottom-up process. The bottom-up process updates the network and intention state by backpropagating the prediction error. By repeating these processes, the prediction error is minimized. The following feature is the PCAIF model to create a goal-oriented plan. Well-trained model can project a plausible time series of percepts in the process even if the target percept is only available in the first and last frames. Challenge in the PCAIF model. The PCAIF model requires many training samples to obtain good generalization results. To solve this issue, one research incorporated a variational Bayesian method. Another research set an appropriate meta-priority for variational Bayesian RNNs. However, these effects were limited and still required more than 100 training samples. We believe improving the generalization ability from fewer training samples is essential to make the PCAIF models more practical. Questions about the PCAIF model. How good is the PCAIF model at solving certain tasks? The test content and environment of the tasks differed from paper to paper, and there were no comparisons using exactly the same tasks. Also, it was not clear what pros and cons the PCAIF method had over RL and IL methods. In this paper, we try to solve these problems and questions. We show how to improve the sample efficiency of the PCAIF model, and also show comparison results between RL, IL, and PCAIF models in the same environment. First, to improve the sample efficiency, we introduce a kinematic-based movement model called the Detailed Internal Model, DIM. And also, we show it is important to have a diversity of training samples for improving sample efficiency. Second, we use the meta-world environment for all experiments to compare RL and IL with the PCAIF model. The architecture of the proposed PCAIF model is shown in the figure. For the most part, it is not different from previous work. Key changes in here. We have introduced DIM to evaluate the plausibility of the projection results of the sensor values. First, to improve sample efficiency, we considered incorporating a detailed internal model of the motor system, a paper showing that the brain has. We humans can project how a thrown ball will fall. We humans do not consider it natural a ball thrown will come back without hitting a wall. This is what we are trying to achieve with this model. We define the projection error ET as follows. The projection error ET can be used to project how plausible a perceptor is. The next step is to divide the training sample to improve the sample efficiency. Long authors have shown it is important to select training samples based on diversity. In the past, the PCAIF model framework used randomly selected training samples. Average task on the right one. Bringing diversity to the training sample means using 8 trajectories to reach the endpoint of the goal space. Instead of randomly sampling the trajectory you reach the goal space, we test whether this idea works for the PCAIF framework. We check the effect of these changes in the meta-world reaching task. We compare the running results from randomly selected 8 trajectories and 8 trajectories selected to cover the goal space. The robot is manipulated by setting the joint angles. We defined ET as a Euclidean distance between the actual fingertip coordinates determined from joint angles and the projective fingertip coordinates. The results are shown in the following table. The PCAIF model with DIM has a higher success rate than the one without DIM in both random and selected training samples. The PCAIF model trained on selected training samples has higher success rate than the model trained on the random training samples regardless of DIM. These results show that both proposed methods are effective in improving the generalization performance. Next, we compare the proposed PCAIF model with other RL and IL methods. We experimented with 3 tasks: average task, push task, and pick and place task. We used the same training samples for the IL and PCAIF models: 8 for average task, 20 for push task, 36 for the pick and place task. As a comparison method, we choose soft-actor critic for reinforcement learning and behavior cloning for imitation learning. In this experiment, unlike the previous experiment, the robot is manipulated by setting the endpoint of the robot arm and the movement of fingertip. As DIM, we build a Gaussian process model to project the arm tip coordinate and movement of the fingertip coordinates. It is defined as the difference between the projective value of the arm tip and fingertip coordinate in the projective control information, using the Mahaviranos distance as follows. The results are shown in the table above. For all tasks, RL soft-actor critic has higher success rate, but has a disadvantage of requiring more interaction with the environment. The proposed method and IL behavior cloning achieved success with fewer training samples, but they are inferior in success rate. Also, the proposed model has a lower success rate than IL. RL and IL require information about the environment at every step, but the proposed method can make long-term projections over tens of steps based on initial observations and target information. The results show there is much room for improvement in PC and AIF models. Summary is shown above. As future work, we believe DIM needs to eliminate the manual definition. And we also believe that PCAIF framework with closed-loop prediction cannot cope with the dynamic changes in the environment, and that open-loop prediction is necessary to cope with dynamic changes in the environment, such as in RL and IL, but it is computationally expensive now. We believe an efficient method for open-loop prediction is needed. Thank you very much for your attention.